Good evening, everyone. My name is Bjorn Fredrickson. I'm the Conservation Director with New Mexico Wild. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight for this webinar that we're hosting in partnership with our friends at New Mexico Dark Sky, as well as our star of the night, Jeff Pfaller, the award-winning photographer and storyteller. We were inspired here in New Mexico Wild by Jeff's travels and photographs of our public lands across the United States, including here in New Mexico. And so we're thrilled that he was willing to join us to share his work with you all tonight. We're going to start the webinar with brief overviews of the work that we do at New Mexico Wild and New Mexico Dark Sky. And then we'll hand over the reins to Jeff to talk about his stunning book, Dark Skies. We'll then conclude the webinar with a brief question and answer session. If you're curious things about that Jeff talks about and want to kind of drill a little deeper, we can do that, and we'll kind of target ending at around 8 p.m. Mountain Time. For those of you here on Zoom, there is a Q&A button down at the bottom where you can enter written questions during the presentation. So I encourage you to use that. And then I will moderate a kind of a Q&A and kind of read the written questions to Jeff along the way. And if you are joining via one of the in-person gatherings in Albuquerque, Belen, Las Cruces, Santa Fe, or Taos, I'm going to ask that you come up to the podium or computer, however they're displaying the webinar tonight, and have the kind of the panelist host there raise their hand in Zoom, and then we can have you ask your question verbally. And we'll try to kind of get to questions on a first come, first serve basis, mixing up online questions in the webinar to kind of keep it balanced across the various viewing locations. And then if you're attending the in-person gatherings in Albuquerque, Belen, Las Cruces, and Santa Fe, you can, of course, join the post-webinar telescope viewing. And if you have questions about that or logistics locally, please save those for your local hosts following the conclusion of the webinar. And then I just want to recognize that there is a viewing planned in Taos tomorrow evening at the Wild Rivers Visitor Center. So that's not tonight, that's tomorrow up in Taos. I want to say thank you to New Mexico Dark Sky for organizing the in-person gatherings and telescope viewings, and ditto to your local partners for hosting us in person tonight at these various locations. And then I want to say, if you're inspired by Jeff's work or this presentation, you can purchase his book via a link that I will place into the chat momentarily. And then ditto, if you're moved to support our work at New Mexico Wild or New Mexico Dark Sky around our collective work on the protection of public lands and dark skies, I'll place links to our organizations into the chat as well, where you can donate to or join each organization if you want to support our work. So stay tuned. I'll drop that stuff in the chat here shortly. And then lastly, I'll say, before kind of delving into this introduction about New Mexico Wild and then handing over to Derek to talk about New Mexico Dark Sky, we are recording the webinar tonight. If you'd like to request a link so that you can view later or share with friends and family, just email me at bjorn@nmwild.org. So that's BJORN at nmwild.org. And I'll also drop that in the chat shortly here for your reference. Moving over to a quick overview of our work at New Mexico Wild. We're a grassroots nonprofit organization dedicated to the protection of New Mexico's wildlands, wildlife, and water. We were founded formally as a nonprofit 501c3 organization in 1997 after a couple decades of kind of volunteer efforts around protection of New Mexico's public lands. And we work closely with communities, tribes, land grants, and Asahi organizations and other conservation partners, using a wide array of administrative, executive, and legislative tools at the federal and state levels to achieve our mission through land, wildlife, and water protections, as well as doing outreach work to engage communities and kind of educate people about public lands and the issues facing them. And then we have a work we do in what's called stewardship, which is hands-on work to improve habitat, water quality, other wildland conditions. We are a membership-based organization, meaning that donations from our supporters provide a substantial share of our overall funding and are integral to the ability or our ability to do our work. And I know that we have numerous members in attendance tonight, so I want to say thank you to our members here tonight for your support. Our role with New Mexico Wild in protecting our amazing dark skies across the state that persist in many of our kind of wildlands is really focused on the protection of undeveloped public lands to avoid future development and the resulting impacts on our dark skies, among many other important values. I'll also say, before handing over to Derek here, that we've partnered with a variety of people at New Mexico Dark Sky to host numerous events in the last couple of years. They've been wonderful partners, and we look forward to continuing our work with them into the future. And with this, Derek, hand it over to you to say a few words about the work that you all do.
Thank you, Bjorn. Yeah, I'm Derek Valentinson with New Mexico Dark Sky. Just a brief little history here. The International Dark Sky Association was actually founded in Tucson in 1987 to stop the spread of light pollution. Now, in the intervening years, IDA has changed its name to Dark Sky International and established over 250 dark sky places worldwide, starting a night sky friendly lighting program and greatly broadened awareness the values and threats to national darkness. Light pollution from the ground is a clear and present danger. It's growing by 10% a year worldwide. Now, satellite constellations are adding threats from above. These sources affect ecosystems, wildlife, and human health, as well as astronomy and cultural aesthetics of the night sky. And here on the ground, say in the city, you've got light trespass too is a serious problem, not only here in the city, but also in rural areas. Uh, Traffic safety is affected by unregulated headlights and poor road lighting. So the New Mexico chapter of Dark Sky started here in 2023, and our efforts have included stakeholder meetings, uh, lighting legislation and ordinances, education and outreach, including this event. We have 9 dark sky places in the state right now. All are on public lands. So we've got Clayton State Park, excuse me, up northeast, Fort Union National Monument, Capuline National Monument, Chaco Culture National Historical Park, El Moro National Monument, Valles Caldera National Preserve, Salinas Pueblo National Monument, Cosmic Campground, which is Forest Service, and of course, where we are, Valle de Oro National Wildlife Refuge, which was the first urban night sky place. Just 15 minutes from downtown Albuquerque, people can see the Milky Way. We're working to significantly expand that number. Strong ordinances are now in place in both Albuquerque and Los Alamos, and now we're shifting gears to emphasize education and enforcement of those ordinances. We'll soon launch a night sky friendly business recognition program that preliminarily is dubbed Ancestral Sky Advocates. And recently, we've been very happy to partner with private organizations in addition to ongoing collaborations with public lands management at local, state, and federal levels. All of us have a stake in preservation of natural darkness. I'm happy to be here for this webinar in collaboration with New Mexico Wild and the other partners, and a welcome to all of you here and across New Mexico in celebration of International Dark Sky Week. Thank you.
And with that, we'll hand it over to Jeff to delve into the kind of core programming of tonight. So thank you, Jeff. It's
Great.
all
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for having me here. Really quick check. I saw a couple things in the chat about volume. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if y'all can hear me okay? I see one, I see two. Okay. Well, I see the majority, so we'll call it good. And then the second big test is, can you see my presentation? And it's not the speaker notes too, right? It's the big, everything looks big. Yeah, I think I could see it on Albert's screen. So we're good to go. Yeah, thank you again for having me. Super excited to be here. I'm jealous that I can't be down there with y'all to see the Milky Way up in Chicago. We've had nonstop rain, tornado warnings, storms, like everything's flooding up here. It's been the opposite of good dark sky viewing, but luckily we'll talk about a whole bunch of different phenomena. Basically, like Bjorn said, I'm Jeff Pfaller. Mainly what I want to talk to you today about is how to make the impossible possible. So New Mexico is an incredible place to see the stars, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that before you head out from this talk tonight. But maybe also think about this talk how you would your Netflix algorithm. So if you like K-pop Demon Hunters or Monster High, you're gonna like plenty of other K-pop anime shows. So if you like the stars, you're gonna love at least one of the rare dark sky phenomena that I'm gonna talk about in this book. Oops, not advancing for some reason. There we go. But first, I feel like you need to know a little bit about me, because making the impossible possible isn't just a big leap, even though it can start with one. So it's going to be light on technique and settings. I'll have a little bit about the Milky Way stuff. So if you're interested in take a picture, hopefully I can give you a good starting point. But yeah, I just want to really let you know what other wonders are out there. Give you some simple hacks to help you see these rare events. Because honestly, the hardest part is just putting yourself in the position to catch them in the first place. I also want to help you walk out of this talk with new things on your bucket list, and also the resolve to answer at least one of the questions standing in your way of seeing those things. So basically, start living a little less one day and more day one. So this is me. I was on my dream career trajectory. I was at the ad agency everybody wanted to work at, leading a team of 20 people that I genuinely enjoyed working with. Starting to get attention from the C-suite, but you probably know where this is going. Not happy. Too many days where I dreaded coming to work. Too much pressure to make decisions for the company that weren't really in line with my values. So something needed to change. But luckily, I had somebody to show me the way. So one day, my top performer called an impromptu meeting with me and gave me a 30-minute presentation about how she was quitting. So her and her boyfriend were going to live in Bali for a month and learn yoga. Then they were going to bum around Southeast Asia for another 2 months. And after that, like, who knew? Wherever the world took them. And my first reaction was genuine happiness for her. I mean, that sounds amazing. But my second thought was, hang on a second, like I'm the boss. Why do you get to go out and do this? And I'm stuck here dealing with the 9 to 5 and all the BS that comes with it. So I decided to challenge my own kind of barriers and blockers. Why was things like worrying about health insurance, paying the bills, supporting my family, like why was that really stopping me? And before that, like, what do I even want to do? So I settled on wanting to spend more time in nature with my family, my friends, and by myself. And I decided freelancing was the best way to get that flexibility. And my secret for figuring this out was just asking for help. So I had no idea how it worked. So I took everybody I knew out for coffee. They answered questions about health insurance, how much to charge, how to get clients. Like they offered me to connect me with their clients and their leads. And these were all things that I thought you weren't supposed to talk about. But people were really generous. And as it turned out, the only reason to figure out this thing that was impossible in my head was just ask how other people had done it. But I still had my own personal list of things that I wanted to get past. So I challenged myself and brainstormed all sorts of solutions, like no bad ideas. And after that, I was kind of surprised at how many viable ideas I had. Like I had backup plans for backup plans. Like what if Obamacare gets repealed? What if the government shuts down? What if I completely run out of money? So I was ready to take the big leap. And my last day gainfully employed, the chief innovation officer called me into his office and basically said, "What do we need to do to keep you?" And my answer was that my mind was made up, but in my head, I was honestly questioning my sanity. Fast forward 6 years later, and this big decision set the stage for me to see and photograph my first impossible miracle of nature, firefall in Yosemite National Park. So the universe threw us a pretty crappy curveball in 2020. Sure, we all remember that. A quick update, freelancing had gone swimmingly. I had work when I wanted, didn't when I didn't. I'd done a month-long road trip by myself, one with my family and my kids. We'd gone with the kids to Turkey, Italy, Greece. I'd gone by myself to Australia, New Zealand, and best of all, Antarctica there on the right. And pre-2014 me probably would have been paralyzed and beaten my head against the wall interviewing and trying to find jobs that didn't exist during the pandemic at the beginning. But I flexed that comfortable being uncomfortable muscle so much that I saw being laid off as a gift. And as it turns out, I'd recently taken my first out of focus picture of the Milky Way. And I can't really describe like the feeling that I had when I saw it show up on the viewfinder. Like you could see the galactic center. It was hidden and it was revealed, and the settings I tried worked, and it blew my mind. So since then, I'd had an idea for a book for about national parks set at night. And this was the thing that was pulling at me the most when the empty space in my life opened up. I didn't really have a plan yet, but I applied all those lessons from the last 6 years and said, I'll figure it out. So I took a 14-day road trip to see the stars. And when I started, the only dark sky phenomena that was really on my radar was the Milky Way. So this is the first shot that was in the book. I took it in Teddy Roosevelt National Park up in North Dakota. I saw the stars in ways I didn't think were possible on that trip. It wasn't always pretty. I had my fair share of bumps and car breakdowns and that kind of thing. But I learned something really cool. If you stay out in the park after dark, you kind of get the place to yourself. And some truly jaw-dropping things happened there. Like I said, I thought it was just the stars until Yosemite. So I'd heard about this pretty incredible thing that happened in a waterfall in February. So I decided to make it the final night of my 14-day journey. One of the first stops I made along the way was White Sands National Park here in New Mexico. Thankfully, nothing was getting blown up in the desert while I was passing through, so I was able to get in the park. I watched the dune surfers and I said hi to the camel. I don't know if he's still showing up in the park, but I had a good chuckle at that. And I waited for darkness to fall and for the tourists to clear out. So during the day, I'm sure you've experienced this in White Sands, even more so in places like Yosemite. Like you come away from the popular iconic spots, like you're lucky if you don't get hit by a car. Like there's selfie sticks and screaming kids and just lots of people. But if you go there an hour after dark, you get these iconic views to yourself. And in a place like White Sands, it's so quiet you can hear the sound of your own heartbeat in your ears, and you feel like you're the only human in the world for miles. So hopefully the stars cooperate tonight for all of you, and you get some amazing views of the galactic center of the Milky Way. Like now's the perfect time to start trying to see it. During the winter, it kind of doesn't rise high enough up in the sky, but March and April are the beginning of Milky Way season, so we'll have until September to see it if you're not able to make it work tonight. So as far as settings go, if you're taking a picture, there's kind of four or five key things. And if you get these dialed in, you basically know how to take a picture of the stars because it's the same settings everywhere you go. And you'll quickly find, like, once you take a really nice picture of just the sky, then the challenge becomes finding an interesting foreground to put in front of it. But basically, you're going to want to use your live zoom feature on your viewfinder to zoom in to as far as you can go, find a bright star, and focus on that using manual focus. Your ISO is going to want to be 1600 to 3200. You're going to want to be wide open, so as wide as you can go. Usually, most lenses are f2.8 or 4.0. You know, sometimes you can get faster ones, but basically go as wide as you can. Your shutter speed should be like 8 seconds to 13 seconds, that neighborhood. And then have a 30 millimeter focal length or wider. So use that as your starting point, and then you can kind of like tweak things up and down based on how it's looking, but that should put you in the right neighborhood. After White Sands, I moved through Carlsbad Caverns and Guadalupe Mountains onto Arizona, Saguaro National Park, and then finally into California, places like Death Valley. So I've been to Yosemite before, but I wasn't super familiar with the park. So my typical dark sky day involves scouting all day and using apps on my phone to figure out where and when the galactic center of the Milky Way, the moon, and the North Star are all going to be at night. Usually 10 or 15-mile days, and the first day in Yosemite was no different. So I walked Southside Valley Loop and up 4 Mile Trail and jotted down a handful of locations. And similar to learning how to freelance, a great thing to do is chasing this kind of stuff is not be shy. So if I pass folks, I chat them up, try and get tips. The photography community can be kind of spicy sometimes, but for the most part, people are happy to share what they know. Like, yeah, I put in the work and the miles to figure things out as much as I can, but I can't tell you how many false starts and wrong turns I've saved because of this community's help. Without them, I'd literally be lost in the dark. But back to Firefall. So I had 2 nights, and I decided to go to the popular spot. So there's no sense in rolling the dice in a place where I hadn't seen it myself, or at least that's what I figured. And there were plenty of other people there, like thousands, and honestly, not a great energy. So the popular spot straddles one of the main roads in and out of the park, and it was pretty clear that you had to get there early to get an unobstructed view. People were cranky, like rangers and volunteers were yelling at folks on megaphones to get out of the road. But if you want to know what $1 million in camera equipment looks like, go there while this is happening. And long story long, the night was a bust, basically. So wind was blowing the water all over the place. All we saw were some glowing rocks. But I had one more night, so I decided to go to one of my out-of-the-way spots for my second and final try. Plus, the angle that I saw from this place just didn't look like the effect that you'd get from social media. So I spent my final day going to other iconic spots in Yosemite to take photos. I didn't want to be bummed if it didn't happen that night. So I filled my camera with daytime shots of Mirror Lake, Bridal Veil Falls, Yosemite Falls, all the hits. And then around like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I started trudging back over to Southside Valley Loop. And this time there were no crowds. So it was just me and four other photographers, and the vibe was a lot more laid back. We had this nice view through the opening of the trees of all of El Capitan. People were happy to move their tripods around to give people their angle, and everybody was just super accommodating. So our cameras were chirping back and forth at each other while we took our test shots. But we all kind of got quiet as golden hour ticked away. And then clouds. So the rock face went dark, and any other time of year, photographers would be ecstatic at these conditions. Like El Capitan's moody and it's wreathed in clouds, but 2 weeks out of the year when firefall is supposed to be happening, everybody's like, "Come on, like really now?" Nobody was saying anything, but the silence kind of said what we were all thinking. Probably not tonight either. But we were wrong. So 10 minutes before sunset, right when the really juicy orange lava part is supposed to happen, the clouds broke and it went from nothing to everything all at once. So it was basically like the waterfall was made of gas and somebody threw a match into it. This is a 2,000-foot waterfall, so it's significant exposure. And the thousands of people who went to see it started cheering like the Beatles took the stage. Like it's about as real close to real life magic as you can get. So this is a video. We'll see if it can go. So this is from this year. But yeah, so imagine what I missed if I wait until retirement to see all this stuff. Like it's easy for me to sit here and say, like, quit your job, put the burden on your family, like screw all your responsibilities. But like I still work a 9 to 5 job. I've got a family. I'm probably at a big advantage because my wife is incredibly supportive and she says yes to most of my crazy ideas, but that's a whole other talk. The only thing I really did was stop waiting and make everything else work. So I work remote during the day. I saw my family on these things. They come with me. I just looked at the things that were blocking me and asked like how I could make it work. Like, do I miss birthdays sometimes? Yep. Do I feel guilty when my wife has to deal with a crisis back home? For sure. But she knows that it's worth it and it makes me happy. So if you want to go see Firefall, how do you increase your chances? I lead guided trips there, and after 6 years of going, you can see it one out of every 3 nights during the second half of February. So if you're going, plan at least like 3 nights, probably four if you want to give yourself a good shot. If you care about your picture, you're going to want to get there a few hours before. Otherwise, it's going to be tricky to get a 100% clear shot. Otherwise, like if you don't care about your picture, you can still see it through branches and stuff. So just get there like an hour and a half early and you can watch the light change and you don't have to worry about missing it. One of the last things is El Capitan is, I think, 4,000 feet of exposure. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the sun can be down below the horizon, but the mountain is still tall enough to catch the light. So keep watching after sunset because it's actually very common for sun to go down. Everybody's walking away. There's lots of clouds. People think it's not happening. And then a minute or two after sunset, the sun kind of gets below the cloud deck and it breaks through and hits it. And everybody who's turned around to walk away misses that experience of seeing the whole thing light up at once. So, you went all the way there, just hang out for a few extra minutes after sunset. And then last, like you need like literally the tiniest break in the clouds to see it. Like I've been there during winter storms that have completely shut down the park, times where I thought there's absolutely no way that the sun is shining through here. And it's happened enough to make me go out in all sorts of nasty conditions. So even if you think the weather's terrible, like just go out there and hang out and see what happens. So Firefall is incredible. And there's some phenomena I've chased that sound like something a poet might dream up. They're rainbows caused by moonlight. They are real. They're spectacular. They're called moonbows. They happen in Yosemite again during April, May, and June when the waterfalls are really going and the angle of the moon is just right. So I've been to Yosemite 18 times and counting. We were talking about before we got on the call. It's my favorite national park. Probably want my ashes spread there when I die. And my first trip to see moonbows there might be my favorite 24 hours outdoors ever. So moonbows require the right angle of the moonlight to shine through the mist, so they can appear from different vantage points at different times. And on this particular evening, it could be seen in Upper Yosemite Falls from Glacier Point, which is one of the tallest waterfalls in North America. So Glacier Point is this iconic viewpoint that looks down on the valley floor from 3,200 feet up. Here you can see my wife telling my son to enjoy the view, but don't enjoy it too much. Usually you can take a bus or you can drive up there, but in April the road's not open yet. So the only way up there is to walk up 4 Mile Trail. I'll give you one guess how long 4 Mile Trail is, and if you said anything but 4 miles, you'd be right. It's 5 miles for some reason. And it's 3,200 feet up. and the last mile is covered with snow. So off the left side of that picture, it's about 2,500 feet down to the floor. And if I'm up there at 1 a.m., that means I'm coming back down at 2 a.m. Won't surprise you to hear I'm the only idiot out there doing it. There's not a ranger up there keeping me safe. And this is the only time that I think I didn't tell my wife what I was doing. Like I've told her since then because I'm like, I'm telling a bunch of strangers about this. I should probably tell you. But like I knew it was pretty dangerous going up there, so I called my best friend from high school and I told him where I was going to be and when I was going to be there. And then I told him if he didn't hear from me by 8 a.m. the next morning to just send help. So I had a safety plan, and then my favorite 24 hours was about ready to get started, even though I didn't know it going in. So driving into Yosemite, you can kind of tell like where the right spots to go to are based on the conditions. And when I drove in that day, there was some like wispy clouds floating just above the trees. So I knew tunnel view had a chance to be really pretty. So I headed there before I started my hike up. And I was right. The mist was like flowing and swirling through the valley. I think they just had conditions like this a few days ago. So if you're on social media and look at the Yosemite hashtag, I'm sure somebody's got some time lapses in there. But like this is absolute peak Yosemite. Like it does not get better than this. I could have spent hours there, but I had somewhere to be and several hours of hiking before I got there. So I tore myself away from something beautiful and went to go chase something there was no guarantee that I was going to see. So, because of that mist, my hike up 4 Mile Trail was just incredible view after incredible view. So, once you get up past the tree line, there's a series of switchbacks. And every time I hit the bends that faced west, my breath was just taken away over and over again. And up at Glacier Point, I had several hours before 1 a.m. But after the magic of sunset, I was able to see the moon rise over the Sierra Nevada mountains. And it continued up, and I had a 400 millimeter lens with a teleextender, so I was able to practice photographing the moon. And with the moon so bright, you could still see the Yosemite landscape. So this view of Half Dome and Clouds Rest, you're usually waiting for a turn to get a photo of yourself with the backdrop, but I had the place all to myself. I was very underdressed, so be smarter than me if you're going up into the mountains in winter. Like I should have worn long underwear and like a few more layers. So I'm like moving around, jumping up and down, running to try and stay warm. But before I knew it, the moonbow was out. So this is a little bit of a unique view because this rock over here on the left-hand side, usually people go out on that for a picture, which is insane. Like they send their kids out there. But like seeing snow on that in the foreground, not a lot of people get to see it because most people don't come up here when there's snow on the ground. Um, and then there's Curry Village down there in the below. So after I got the moonbow, headed back down and was about halfway down, and I'm carrying my tripod like fully extended. I don't know what I was expecting. Like there were bears and mountain lions and people just like waiting along the trail in the middle of the night, just waiting for me to go by. And I heard this branch snap, and I just spun around, and I was ready to just absolutely clean the clock of whatever was out there. And after a few heart racing seconds, I realized that I had stepped on a twig and it echoed off the rock, and that was what sent me into a panic. So luckily, the rest of my night was uneventful, except for when I got back to the valley floor and the moon was setting. So I got to see moon rise over the Sierras, and then stayed up and got to see moon set over the Sierras too. I saw moonbows from three other spots on that trip, Lower Yosemite Falls, and finally from Cook's Meadow. So by the end of the trip, I kind of figured out how to spot them. So to the naked eye, they look like a white arc in the mist. And that's because the first thing about human eyesight to kind of leave us, especially as we get older, is the ability to see color. So that's why Northern Lights pictures look so much more saturated than they do in real life. So a really common experience would be for folks to be standing there wondering, like, is it happening? Like, is it there? It's supposed to be out. And then they take a picture with their camera and they're like, oh, like, holy crap, when they see it on the back of their viewfinder. It's because cameras can just let in so much more light than our eyes can take in. So they help us see this hidden world that exists after dark, and they show nature in its widest aperture. So if you want to go see them, how do you increase your chances? Moonbows are technically visible from anywhere as long as you've got water and the right kind of moonlight. So you can have, like if there's a storm, like there's up here right now, you can get it through the rain, just like you can a regular rainbow. You can see fog bows if there's enough mist in the air. But if you don't know what you're looking for, like that can be really tricky. So like Yosemite, Cumberland Falls, I think Iguazu Falls in South America, you can see them there. But all those places have websites that show like the date and the time and the location to go to. So first time out, do yourself a favor, just use those sites, go to where they say, and just take the guesswork out of it, and you'll have a much better time. Like I said, it's hard to see the moonbows if you don't know what you're looking for, and the times are kind of estimates. So, like 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after, take some test shots, go for like a 6 second exposure, and your camera will be able to reveal the color. It's enough to see it on your viewfinder, and you'll be able to tell whether or not they're there. And then last, you just need a few breaks in the cloud to see the magic. So, like, if it's mostly cloudy or super, super cloudy, like, and you're cold and don't want to go out, like, that's probably fine. But if it's like that pockmarked where there's lots of holes in the clouds or partly cloudy, like, it's worth going out because the moon will break through and you'll be able to see it. So just kind of pay attention to when the light comes through and then take your shot. So moonbows are really hard to capture, but I think the hardest thing to get is eclipses for a whole bunch of reasons. Like the constraints on the location are even narrower. If you live in the US, like you're gonna need a passport to go even have a chance of seeing one for the next few decades. Conditions are the most extreme swings, so you're literally photographing the brightest object in the sky possible. And then in an instant, you have to completely reconfigure for nighttime photography. So they only last a few minutes. If you want a diamond ring shot, like you got a few seconds to get it. Nature photography really isn't a high pressure sport, but this is about as close as it gets. But the four eclipses I've seen are probably my favorite memories, and it's mostly because of who I saw them with. So my wife and I take our kids out of school, no question, if there's an opportunity for eclipse. It's as close as you can get to being on another planet. But the best part is what's up on the slide right now. You get a lot of windshield and travel time during eclipses. And in 2023, my 13-year-old and I drove 20 hours to see an annular eclipse in Canyonlands National Park. The whole thing lasted, like the actual eclipse, I think it lasted 5 minutes, which is kind of nutty. Like people were asking me, like, why'd you do that? And like, sure, the eclipse was great, but like that kind of one-on-one time with them is really rare, especially as they get older. And one of my favorite memories from that trip had absolutely nothing to do with the eclipse. So we were driving through the Rocky Mountains. It was October and you could see all four seasons on the mountainside. So it was like flowers and green at the bottom, and then you got the gradients of changing colors as you went up the mountain, and then finally like snow-covered trees and rocks at the top. And it's those like little moments that surround the big ones that are like every bit as memorable as the main event. This isn't a picture of that because I was driving, obviously, and didn't want to stop to or couldn't stop to take a picture because it was the expressway, but it was still a great memory. I've had pretty good luck with eclipses every time. I've been able to find a clear place in the path of totality, even though for some of them there was clouds in the forecast. I saw a video once from Dallas during the last total eclipse, and they had completely cloudy skies. So from 0 to 99%, they saw nothing. No weird animal behavior, no weird shadows. But then when the sun was covered up and it stopped like washing out the back of the clouds because it wasn't shining on it, the eclipse shone through and the entire city just lost their minds. Like people fell to their knees and started praying. People were screaming. It was wild. So it's worth checking out that video. And also worth heading out for an eclipse, even if you think the chances aren't that good, because you never know what you might be able to get or see. So if you want to go see them, how do you increase your chances? It's pretty well documented where and when they're going to be. The paths are plotted out like 100 years from now, if not longer. But what you might not realize is that traffic is an absolute nightmare. So, like triple or quadruple your travel times. So just plan ahead, book a place to stay in the path of totality at least a year in advance. And then you not only need to wear protective wear for your eyes, obviously, but also for your camera lens. So you're pointing your sensor at what's the equivalent of thousands of nuclear explosions for hours. It can get fried. So you're going to want a solar filter. And then you're going to want to remember when it reaches totality, you got to take all that off and change your settings for astrophotography. You also want a fairly long lens so you can get like the detail of the corona and any solar prominences. So like 400 millimeters at least, consider getting an extender. And then last thing I kind of alluded to earlier, like you can see it through the clouds. So if it's like a light haze or partly cloudy, like don't feel like you've got to get knocked off your spot. But if it is like you're socked in thick clouds and there's really no chance, have a backup plan for being flexible enough to go to a different location, especially if you go international, because you get traveled all this way. At that point, you kind of got to be willing to deal with the traffic and the drive if you want to get your shot. So some things like eclipses, these are tough to see because they only happen once in a lifetime, and if you miss it, you're kind of out of luck. But some are tough to see because they're so popular, there literally isn't enough parking. So one week in June, there's this one species of firefly that has their mating ritual in the Smoky Mountains, and it's a display so insane that over 20,000 people apply for the permit to see it. But only 100 vehicles are allowed in per night. So some people try for years to get in, but never do. But there are a couple secret tricks. The phenomena takes place around a campground that was turned over to the Park Service like in the 50s, I think. And if you book a spot there, you're allowed in as well. But it's a little bit like getting a pass to a Taylor Swift concert. The first time I tried to book, I was refreshing at 9 a.m. And the time it took me to see it come available and press the site number, it had been taken already. But you remember, I'm a very stubborn photographer. And the third way is to walk in. So it's 7 miles one way. So not impossible, but that also means that you're hiking back out in pitch darkness in black bear country. So it's not for the faint of heart. But I'm not shy anymore. Happy to ask for help. So while I was there, I chatted up like these three middle school science teachers while I was there, and they were kind enough to offer me a ride back to my car. So what's the big deal? Why is this on everybody's bucket list? I've yet to meet anybody who didn't grow up chasing fireflies. Maybe they're not as prevalent down the south, but at least up in the Midwest, they're all over the place. And kids love chasing them, putting them in jars, like letting them go. Adults love watching the kids do that and run around and laugh because it reminds them of when they were a kid. And it's kind of like our signal of summer up here. Like once you start seeing the fireflies, like it's summertime. So picture the most fireflies you can imagine, and then triple it. And now imagine all of these guys going completely dark for a few seconds, and then all of them coming back on at the same time. I've seen people move to tears by it. On one of my trips, there's this like 7-year-old, like good old Southern boy from Tennessee, and he was giggling like a little kid because the fireflies were like flying in and out between his legs and blinking back and forth in patterns. Another way to describe it is like imagining thousands of Christmas lights are strung up everywhere and they blink back and forth in patterns. So even though attendance is restricted to protect them, it's pretty crowded. It's a small area, but for 3 hours, people just kind of watch in quiet awe. So if you want to go see it, you can see your fireflies in the backyard in the Midwest, but if you want thousands, go to the Smoky Mountains. So check the lottery dates in April for an idea of what week to go. Like enter the lottery, you're probably not going to win it, but like that tells you when they're going to peak. And they're not constrained to just the campground. Like there's fireflies everywhere there. So you can try and book a campsite. You can consider walking in. But if you can't go to either, go to Cades Cove. So it's an amazing constellation prize. Like you don't get the synchronous fireflies blinking back and forth, but you still get tens of thousands of the regular ones. And you can kind of sit in the meadow that's like stretches out for a half mile. And it's just like fireflies as far as you can see. If you're a photographer, bring a telephoto lens. So this might sound counterintuitive, but like they're usually around like knee height. And if you get down to their level and shoot through like a plane of fireflies, at your widest aperture, you'll get like these nice big orbs with bokeh when they float right in front of your camera. And then last, fireflies actually like the moisture. So, if it's raining, as long as there's no lightning and no wind and it's safe, like you can go out in a downpour and they'll still come out. And like most spots in the Smokies are also kind of sheltered by a thick canopy of leaves. So they're pretty protected. And I've been there when it's been a pretty heavy rain and they still came out and did their thing. So since then, I've stayed up way past my bedtime. I failed a lot at photographing things like firefall in American public lands. I'm lucky enough that my bucket list is legitimately empty. And it's all because I stopped waiting for one day. Um, I've mentioned before, like a lot of this kind of thing is hard to see and capture. So there are plenty of nights where I came away with absolutely nothing. So luckily, I learned how to deal with failure by the time I decided to get serious about chasing the Northern Lights. I'd spent 2 years trying to catch the darn things, but with no luck. They were the last thing I felt like I wanted to have before I had a book. Like I felt like it wouldn't be complete without it. And I'd never seen them before. Because the book was set in public lands, I had to find places within driving distance. I live in Chicago, a lot of light pollution, so I had to go pretty far. Plus, I wanted to have a little chapter on the lights, so I wanted to get them in these iconic spots. So, Apostle Islands, National Lakeshore, Pictured Rocks, National Lakeshore, Sleeping Bear Dunes, all those places kind of fit my criteria. And I had to learn some hard lessons along the way. There's one time I stayed up all night chasing Aurora, and at 4 a.m., the consensus among the Michigan Aurora Chasers group was a coronal mass ejection head towards Earth, and it was like if it hasn't hit by now, the aurora's probably not going to get going until after sunrise anyway. So I left, went to sleep in a Walmart parking lot, and you can probably guess what happened. I woke up, and everybody in the group had gorgeous pictures of red and blue and purple pillars, and like it was an amazing show that night. And I got nothing because I left early. I got burned by aurora activity surging, but during daytime. I got burned by clouds covering everywhere within driving distance. Burned by bursts from the sun missing Earth. Burned by positive BZ. Burned by not going far enough north. Like I failed for 2 years straight. But it wasn't all a wash though. Like I'd find meteors every now and again, like here in Sleeping Bear Dunes, the Geminid meteor. But I'm a very stubborn photographer. So after 2 years, I booked a one-way trip to Alaska, and I told myself I was not leaving until I saw them. So I convinced a friend to come with me, and he and I drove up to the southern Denali viewpoint that overlooked Troublesome Creek. And already our luck was pretty great. It was completely clear. You could see Denali, tallest mountain in North America, which isn't guaranteed. Darkness fell, kind of got colder. And we snapped our test shots and we were like, is this it? Is it out? Is it just air glow? Like we weren't sure. So we hiked up to a different viewpoint to get a clearer view of the northern sky. And by the time we got there, the lights were out. And it was like an ethereal green rainbow just stretching across the sky and it ended in Denali. It's not the most impressive display, but like there's no time like the first time. We shot lots of pictures, like we were zoomed in through the trees. If there was a composition up there to find, we probably found it. This was my first time photographing them, so I was still kind of figuring things out. And we were pretty happy. So we spent about like 3 hours at the spot, and we both came to the same conclusion at the same time. Like we were going to switch it up and go to a different spot. And I was packing up my gear, and I wasn't looking when my friend just started going nuts. And he was like, "No, no way, we're not leaving. Like, come over here and look at this." And it was like the sky was filled with green shimmering gas. I could see it moving, I could see the color, and we kind of couldn't believe it. So we saw the lights every night. It was clear that night, and we even saw a stronger show outside Fairbanks. So my one-way trip was pretty short. And even though I got super lucky, and I'll always remember how that first night felt, the Aurora chapter was still like, kind of thin. And then May 2024 happened. So it's predicted to be the strongest aurora show in 20 years. Skies were going to be clearing in Wisconsin and then east. And it was a Friday night, so I didn't have work to worry about. My wife took our youngest, and I headed north to Lake Superior. And it was a wild night. So I took this fun, like, feed up pic on my phone to send to my friend. And there were already wisps of aurora out before any of the stars were even out. I saw the colors through 100% cloud cover while it was raining. At one point, the sky was doing this, and there were some folks that joined me at Gordon County Dam, and they kind of looked up and were like, "Oh, huh, neat." And then they left after a couple minutes, and like I didn't have time to make friends with them, but I'm pretty sure we don't have much in common. The family that heard me drop this giant F-bomb when I saw a meteor streak in front of my camera, like, I'm sorry I taught your kid that bad word. A quick side note on meteors, like I'm usually not trying to get them. They're usually happy accidents. But if you go during the shows where there's more activity, give yourself a few hours of viewing. Like the most intense shows, they only like fall at like the rate of one or two a minute. So you're gonna want to be out there for a bit. They're usually named after the constellation that they originate from. So Geminids originate from Gemini, Perseids from the Perseids. So find that constellation, use a wide angle lens to give yourself the best possible shot. And then last, keep your shutter open as much as possible. So if you want point stars, that's going to be about like 13 seconds. If you're okay with a little bit of star trails, you can go up to 30. But just use a remote shutter, and most of them have a setting where you can lock it off so that your shutter is always open. Like there's nothing worse than missing a meteor because you weren't taking a picture, which has happened to me lots. So back to the lights. So I was laying on my back at 3 a.m. and there was aurora in every direction, all the way up to the top of the sky. and it started doing this pulsing thing where it looks like electricity is running up it every few seconds. If you're a Star Wars fan and you watched Rebels, I think it looks like what the Purgles look like when they're charging up to go into hyperspace. At one point, I'd literally been shooting for like 7 or 8 hours straight, and I decided to give my camera a rest. I was like, if I don't have the shot by now, I'm probably not going to have it. I'm just gonna like see it with my eyes. Um, and then I turned around and this was happening, and I was like, okay, for crap's sake. My favorite shot from the book came on that this night. And it's not the most dramatic, but it's the most special, probably because I was bleary-eyed and delirious from being up all night. But in this photo, hopefully it's coming through on the screens, you can see the sunrise coming up and filling the sky, and you can still see aurora, which after 2 years of being taught hard lessons about how fragile it is, it just blows my mind. Like I was by myself, the waves of Lake Superior were crashing on the beach, and it was like the universe had this one last gift for me. It's rare to get 2 nights in a row, but this storm was special. Night two was quieter, but I got to spend it where I fell in love with the outdoors, Chapel Rock Beach and Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. I grew up camping here, and I backpacked this stretch with my son, so I was able to pass on this incredible landscape to my kids as well. I had the beach completely to myself, and on the hike back, I was underneath all the trees, and I could like the aurora just rushed at me, like I could see it coming, like a really fast moving storm over the lake, and I swear I could feel it like hit my body. Like a lot of people claim that they can hear the aurora, they can feel it, and I feel like I definitely felt it that night. Didn't have my camera. It was in my pack. There are trees all over the place. So even if I got out, I wasn't gonna get a good picture. So I just kind of like let it wash over me and watch the pillars undulate behind the trees. So it's moments like that, like you have the whole place basically to yourself. You feel like you're on another planet, and you feel like you're the only one watching what's literally a miracle. It's the reason the word impossible exists. If you want to go see the Northern Lights, how do you increase your chances? So similar to meteors, they ebb and they flow and they change. So plan for at least a few hours of viewing. Like give yourself the space to be patient. When you're checking dark sky maps, like yeah, the darker the better. But if you're on the north side of a town and there's nothing that direction, it's usually dark enough for you to see it. Like I've seen pictures of the aurora from Chicago just because people were looking out over the lake to the north. And then last, like clouds, this light's really fragile. So I usually need like 2 out of 3 things. It either needs to be predicted to be a strong show, clear skies, I don't have to be at work the next day. So if it's going to be like kind of sketchy from clouds, but it's going to be a strong show and I don't have to work the next day, I'll head out. Or if it's going to be strong show and clear, I'll power through, work on no sleep to see it. But if I've only got one of those things, then I'm not gonna head out probably. So when you walk out today, want to ask you what's that one thing that you're putting off that you're going to start? What's a small step you can take to get ready for the big leap? And I've talked a little or quite a bit about the recreation side of dark skies, and that's the main goal with the book is to get people out in these places and seeing them in a new way. But this journey's also taught me a lot about conservation and how important dark skies are. And I'm gonna start somewhere maybe a little bit unexpected. Nighttime is critical to humans too. So it's hardwired into who we are, and it's played a key role in our success as a species. So we spread across the earth using the stars and the night sky as our guide. All these ships with entrepreneurial humans forged new paths and thrived using these points of light as their navigation. So quite literally, our species would be lost without the stars. It's woven into our DNA and our hearts and our souls. Like there is not a single culture on the face of this planet that doesn't have a tale about the stars. The moon is godlike status in these stories that we've told ourselves over and over throughout the years. Dark skies are how we formed bonds with each other when we came back to the safety of the village after a day of hunting and foraging. It's the inspiration for so much of our myth making. And if we lose our connection to these stories, who are we going to be? And if we lose the things that thrive in the dark, how much is the rest of the natural world going to be dimmed? Because it's almost impossible to find a natural rhythm more universal than day and night. It's not just the foxes and the owls and the possums and the bats that rely on the darkness to hunt and forage. Daytime animals have circadian rhythms and they need the darkness to recover and evade predators. Birds and insects, they use the stars to navigate their own migration routes. And nocturnal pollinators, they can get really disrupted by light pollution. I mean, anybody who's seen like a porch light with moths and all the things swirling around it, like can confirm this behavior. For many species, darkness is quite literally a matter of life and death. So yeah, so I really appreciate New Mexico Wild and the New Mexico Dark Sky chapter for inviting me today, and for all the people that showed up and logged on the webinar. So yeah, I'd love to, I think we got about 10 minutes. So I would love to take pictures about or questions about other dark sky phenomena, national parks, lifestyle design, like you name it.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Wonderful presentation and photos and lessons learned. As a reminder, if you're watching on the webinar, you have questions, drop it in the Q&A function. And if you have folks in person who have questions, go ahead and have your host raise the hand in Zoom, and we can call on you and kind of manage all this. And then if our host for the in-person gatherings, a little reminder, send me a quick head count via chat of how many people you had gathered up. If you don't mind, that'd be great. So as we wait for, oh, go ahead, Michelle. You all have a question there?
Have you ever been to Chaco Canyon?
No, I have not been
Did you?
to Chaco Canyon. I've been to Sabino Canyon next door in Arizona, but not to Chaco yet. I mean, New Mexico is one of those places where I think I've been a handful of times in my life, and it's definitely on the list of places to go back to.
We
Thank
would
you.
encourage you to visit Chaco next
Oh,
time you're in New Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think you mentioned that on one of the calls. So yeah, it's probably on my one of my lists somewhere.
Yeah. Is that it,
can
Michelle?
you
We have
snow when you're coming?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Can you let us know when you're coming? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
you can get the band back together,
Yeah.
our gang, go visit Chaco with Jeff. Um, we have a question in the chat from Felicia. Would any camera work, for example, on a phone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm kind of unusual for a photographer, I think, because I'm pretty anti-gear. Like I think the best camera you've got is, or the best camera is the one that you have. If you look at like World War One photos, if you handed any of those photographers your phone, they would absolutely lose their minds because they'd be like, "What? You can see your picture when you take it?" Like that would just freak them out. But like World War One pictures are still extremely powerful pictures. So yeah, don't let gear get in the way. And I mean specifically iPhones are good. Like their night mode is like I've been really impressed by it. So I've got a Pixel 8, which is great for during the day. But at night it's kind of garbage. Like I'm really jealous if I'm out with people and they take pictures of their iPhones in night mode and they can get pictures of the fireflies and the stars and the Milky Way and the Northern Lights in particular. And mine, I try and use night mode and it's just black. So I would caveat it by saying it depends on the phone. But any camera that you've got that allows you to like that has a manual mode that so it lets you manipulate kind of the three parts of the photography triangle, right? So how sensitive your camera sensor is, how big your shutter opens, and then how fast the shutter goes when it stays open. As long as you can change those three things and you can also manually focus, then just about any camera should work. I mean, some will be better than others, right? Like they can handle the higher because when you increase the sensitivity of your sensor, it introduces a lot of like what's called noise, which kind of like wrecks some of the pictures. So some cameras are better at dealing that with others, but um, any one that's got a manual setting, you should be okay to work with.
We have a question from Jim. Where is your favorite place to shoot?
Mm.
And then we got you
Um,
next in Las Cruces, Zach.
yeah. I mean, Yosemite's my favorite park, but like in terms of shooting photos, Like it's funny, like when I take people on the trips there, they're like, why don't you have your camera out? Like crazy stuff will be happening. And I'll be like, I've been here 22 times. Like I've kind of like it's gotta be really special for me to take it out there. So like Yosemite would be my first reaction or answer, but I think the like a thing that I wanted to get for the book that I wasn't able to was like more bioluminescence. So like the bioluminescent algae that shows up in the ocean, bioluminescent mushrooms, like we've got those here in the forest preserve close to my house. So that's like the thing that I'm most interested in currently. And I do less like going by myself these days. Like it's usually with like other people either on the trips or like my family came to Yosemite with me this year. I took the same kid that went with me to see the eclipse when my kids turn 16. Like they get to pick a place and we go, just me and them, kind of have some like father-son bonding time. And he was going to see this like electric blue mushroom that grows only in New Zealand. If you Google it, like lots of results will show up. So that kind of stuff is what's pulling my interest now. So yeah, I would say like bioluminescence is like currently the favorite thing to shoot. But yeah, I also think like nature is where you are, right? There's lots of memes going around. Like when I'm in Yosemite, like the sunsets are, I mean, they're not terrible, but like no clouds, it's like kind of humdrum, and then you get back to like the grocery store or the gym, and it's like this incredible sunset with lots of clouds, and it looks like I'm on fire, and you're just in the parking lot of like an Aldi. So, yeah, anywhere is my favorite place to shoot, which is kind of a cop-out answer, but bioluminescence is what I'm most interested in right now.
Hey, we got a question in the room. I'm Las Cruces now.
Yeah.
How important would you say it is knowing more about the phenomenon, especially in the night sky that you're trying to see, what it is, what causes it, the background of these things? So many people will come to my telescope and there's something there. They just whip up their phone and try to take a picture of it. And I'm like, I'm trying to tell you what it is. And they're not interested in that. They just want to
Sure.
draw a shot of something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important to, I mean, it's impossible to know everything, right? But learning as much as you can about what you're shooting and what causes it helps a lot. So I'm completely self-taught. I didn't go to college or have any like formal training to shoot photography, which I actually I consider myself a below average photographer. I think I just picked like good subject matter. But like my approach for learning was to just focus on like one thing at a time, right? So how do you shoot the Milky Way and kind of learning everything that goes into that. And then after that, it was like, okay, now how do I photograph firefall? After that, it was how do you do fireflies? How do you do lightning? So like all these individual specific things. Then once I got to like thing 3 or 4, um, you start to see the patterns, right? Like you understand like what things are common, what things are unique. And eventually, just like I just found myself building up like enough of a library of skills so that now I guess I feel like maybe I still do it, but I feel like if I don't understand necessarily everything, I can still kind of like figure it out and learn more on the fly. And I would also say like just going out and shooting and failing is the best way to do it. Like you can read about something all you want, but until you get out there, it's no replacement for actual practice. But I still learn lots of things. Like when I was figuring out how to shoot moon bows, I learned that if like what creates both a rainbow and a moon bow is like the moon or the light source is shooting like straight behind you into the water. So if you're ever out and the conditions are right for a rainbow, like find the sun and then look in the opposite direction, and that's where the rainbow will be. Which, how old was I? 43 or 44 or whatever it was before I learned like probably what maybe is a basic fact about rainbows and math. And now like I feel like, I see way more rainbows just by learning that. So yeah, I would say learning as much as you can about them. It will only help you. Both like get your picture if that's your goal, but then also like make it easier for you to see other things in the future.
Jeff, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A function. The first one, and maybe I don't have the photography expertise to understand, but it's asked about the lens you're using, prime or zoom.
Yep. Yeah, so I've got zoom lenses. So I've got well, I take that back. I have a prime 15 millimeter wide angle lens. I have a 24 to 70 millimeter, and then I've also got a 100 to 500 millimeter, and then that's got like a 1.4x extender, so I can get more range on it. So like I mean, if you're asking about that question, like you probably know the trade-off, right? Like prime lenses are going to be sharper and will give you a little bit better quality. The zoom lenses obviously give you a little bit more flexibility at the expense of a little bit of quality. So like, yeah, when I was deciding how to buy gear, like I chose the flexibility. I feel like I'm pretty used to um, like moving with my feet and like spending more time in a place to find different angles and different compositions. So a lot of like or like photographers early on in their journey, they kind of like take one shot from just standing and like that's the angle that they go for. But I felt like my photography took a little bit more of a leap when I would, yeah, like get that shot where you first walk up to something, but then also like what are the details? What happens if you zoom in? What happens if you get down on the ground? What happens if you hold your camera all the way down on the ground? So just exploring all the different ways that you can shoot a place. And I felt like having zoom lenses would just give you more options. Because sometimes like you get to a place and you don't really know like how big the mountain's going to be. You don't know like where you can stand, where you can't stand. Um, sometimes you just can't even get close to something and you need that zoom to be able to reach. With wildlife especially, like they don't really like it when you get up close to them. So if you don't have a zoom lens, you're probably not going to have a great time when you're shooting wildlife. So yeah, personally, I've got telephotos for the flexibility, but I do have a prime wide angle lens, and that's usually what I'm using to shoot the Milky Way because the stars like they don't change no matter where you go, so they're a cooperative subject.
Okay. And then the second question, we call that the last question, maybe to kind of get everyone to their telescope viewings who
Yeah.
joined those is how much of the wow in your images is editing after the shot to really make the colors pop or other effects?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll bring the presentation back up. So with Firefall, yeah, like I mean it pretty much looks like this. I mean, I'm, touching exposure and contrast. I'm increasing the saturation a little bit, but like if you're familiar with Lightroom, you can go from like 0 to 100. I'm usually like moving sliders to the 20 mark or less. So yeah, I'm not doing, there's a balancing act, right? Like you can go 100% natural, you want it to look like how it looks to be there, or you can go hyper stylized and be overly dramatic. So I didn't choose to go the completely natural route, just because like a lot of the effects, like this Milky Way picture it's just from letting more light in. Like this shot of the night sky, it's a composite. So I shoot the foreground during blue hour, and then that's 100 photos of the Milky Way. So it's 20 minutes of exposure time. So like already by the nature of taking the shot, I'm kind of doing something that we can't perceive or is realistic. And so like artistically, that was the choice that I wanted to make. Like I wanted to make this stuff feel dramatic and show like what is possible outside the limits of our senses. So but like fireflies, this is I mean again, this is like 20 minutes of exposure time, like fireflies stacked together. The Northern Lights, like this is basically what the colors look like in camera. This one I didn't even touch the saturation at all. Like this is just contrast and exposure. So it's kind of like it's a light hand with editing, but it's not nothing. Like I am pushing it a little bit. So yeah, before like you kind of close this out, I think the last thing that I wanted to say was like the fight to protect public lands, it's been going on for 100 years. It's going to go on for 100 more. But like at this particular moment in time, it feels extra crucial. And organizations like New Mexico Wild and New Mexico Dark Sky Chapter, like they're being asked to do more than ever before. So we kind of need everybody to jump in and help. So I think I mentioned in the chat, but if you are interested in a book and you want to pick it up, 20% of the profits are going to go directly back to these two organizations, so you can feel good about supporting them. But even if you don't buy the book, I would highly encourage you to find a way to support them, either through like spreading the word or donating time or advocacy, because they're doing a lot of great work to protect a pretty special part of our landscape.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jeff. And yeah, I really encourage folks to pick up a copy of Jeff's book. I'm sure we only got a small taste of the beautiful photography therein. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to join us and share your work with us tonight, Jeff. And thanks again to New Mexico Dark Sky Chapter for your ongoing partnership and joining us to kind of co-host this event, and ditto to all of the local partners that participated in hosting these local gatherings in person. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and hope to see you out on our public lands someday. And yeah, Jeff, if you ever make your way back to New Mexico, let us know, and love to show you some new spots.
Yeah, you guys are my first call.
Cool. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.